Hello, good people of the internet, and welcome to the Freak Review. I'm sorry this took so long, but I picked about the worst possible time to get sick, and I had some technology issues, but now we should be able to get up and running with a bigger, I guess? Mostly a better Freak Review. So I know, once again, I'm continuing this trend of not being remotely timely, but I'm getting better. And hopefully soon I'll actually be reviewing things within the week that they actually come out. But for now, we're going to stick to the pattern of being late. We're going to be talking about The Killer's new album, Battleborn. Now, I don't care who you are or where you're from, you're familiar with The Killers. So, we're going to talk about big music for a little bit. Not big in like the popular versus unpopular sense. We're talking about the kind of music that can fill stadiums. And there are a lot of bands that have kind of made a living doing that. Most of them are the arena rock bands, the classic rock bands of the 70s and 80s. Journey is my favorite example. U2 is up there as well. There are just bands that are good at writing songs that can just stir emotion in you just because of how huge they are. And some bands in this era are doing it too. A lot of punk pop falls in that area of music. You fall in love with it just because of how large everything is. And then there are bands that write songs that try to fill stadiums, and they invariably fail. Because the harder you try to make your music big, the harder you will fail. And then there is that rare niche where you have a band that is trying so unbelievably hard to write big music that they end up failing miserably, but creating an entertaining enough spectacle that you can't help but laugh and enjoy yourself. My favorite example, Dragon Force. So the Killers are obviously aiming for that first category of big and huge and exciting, because they haven't been anything close to subtle since Hot Fuss came out. I'll argue that this album is not the disaster it's being made out to be, but it's also not anywhere close to the band's best. Look, if you're looking for Hot Fuss Part 2, stop. You're not going to find it here. And this style is not really the best thing for them. Battleborn is completely drenched in cheesy synthesizers, big, huge choruses, and resounding beefy drum parts. Oh, did I say album? I meant the first track. And a lot of the album progresses in this vein. Let's be honest, it's not very good all the time. There's a certain novelty, kitschy sort of feel to it, but on repeated listens it doesn't hold up. There's not a whole lot of substance. Brandon Flowers is under the impression whatever he's saying is incredibly important, but for the most part it's almost incoherent or just pretentious, which is arguably worse. You're not going to get any memorable stories or lines out of this like off their older material. You could relate to Mr. Brightside. You can't really relate to Flesh and Bone, let's be real. The Killers are kind of known for their 80s influence. It was kind of part of their charm back in the day when they came out, but the 80s were just an ingredient, an already potent mixture. Here the 80s kind of take over so much it's hard to remember that they were influenced by anything else. And this cheesiness and overt 80s-ness is what has largely let this album be ripped apart by a lot of fans and critics. But there are some things to like here. Not surprisingly, those are among the most straightforward. This is the Killers we know and love. It's a good, straightforward alternative jam telling an angry story about a girl. It's got a big chorus that actually feels natural. It sounds like Dustland Fairy Tale off of the Day and Age, which was one of the few good tracks off of that album. It's all the better for it. Definitely one of the best ones to check out. This song isn't so much as traditional, but it's that bass line. So funky. And here we have the Killers playing with some country influence. It seems like every album there's at least one track that's completely outside the comfort zone that ends up working. On Day and Age it was I Can't Stay. And here we have a surprise winner. But, this album suffers from one crippling flaw. It's almost impossible to remember most of it. There are almost no choruses that stick with you. Runaways is the lead single. I think it's a terrible choice. Well, it's a good enough song in its own right. It's big and huge and flashy, but you can't sing along to it because there's not much to sing along with. And I'm not saying that the chorus is everything you need in a song, but when you're an alternative rock band that thinks they're a classic rock band but is actually a pop band, hook is really important. Oh, and let's not forget that there's not a lot of substance to make up for the fact that those hooks aren't going to stick with you. I mean, individually, yes, these are some good songs. But if you try to chuck them all together into an album, there's just not a lot to go on. There's way too many ballads and slow jams, and the Killers kind of struggle in that department, aside from a few good vocal moments from Flowers. The band is so convinced they're writing the next big thing. It's so convinced that they can take on Springsteen and U2 and in the arena and win. And the fact that the band really just ended up creating something kind of entertaining doesn't quite make up for all the failures. But then there are the times when I listen to this and I think, man, this is so ridiculously big and huge, it's silly, it actually ends up working. Turn the volume up enough, anything starts sounding good. Good bit of fun to be had here, and for that I have to give the Killers some credit, even if they're clearly trying for something more serious than what they ended up with. Final verdict, after much deliberation, the Killers Battleborn gets a 6 out of 10 for me. Worth checking out, but certainly not gunning for any Album of the Year awards. That's all I've got for now. Go listen to good music, everyone, and I promise the next video will come sooner. And this is what we call a post-production edit. Forgot to mention the 3 best tracks on the album: Matter of Time, Deadlines and Commitments, and Miss Atomic Bomb. If you can get the bonus track version, I highly recommend it, because there's a song on there called Prize Fighter, which is totally awesome and should have made it into the album.